So last week I checked out Star Wars Episode 1 Racer for the N64 and the PC. It was a game I had some nostalgia for, but I still found it to be an enjoyable experience, at least on the PC side. If you haven't seen that video yet, I do recommend checking it out first, as I'll be referencing it occasionally. If you choose not to watch it, that's fine too. I'll try my best to explain everything. But near the end of the video, I asked you guys if you would like for me to play the sequel, and I received an overwhelming yes. So you know what, I'm a man of the people, and I'll be giving you guys what you want today. So today I'll be taking a look at Star Wars Racer Revenge on the PS2, a game I didn't even hear of until I did my research last week, so let's dive into it. Star Wars Racer Revenge released exclusively for the PlayStation 2 on February 11th, 2002. The story follows the events of Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace. In the movie, Sebulba, the overwhelming favorite, is humiliated by underdog Anakin Skywalker. He goes into exile for 8 years, only to re-emerge to seek revenge on Anakin for defeating him 8 years prior. The game's story is once again not the focus here, and beyond the initial scrolling Star Wars text, we hear nothing else of this supposed rivalry between the two. Anakin is older and has his Clone Wars look, yet still drives the same pod racer from the film. Racer Revenge features 3 different championships to race across, but this time instead of 7 races per championship, it's 4, with the third and final championship featuring 5. Just like the first game, you start out at Tatooine and race across various circuits on different planets throughout the Star Wars universe. There were some really cool visual designs here, like this map full of huge, translucent purple mushrooms, for example. I really liked how the Bunta Classic from the film was here again as the finale, and the map looks much closer to the film version of the track. Unfortunately though, I felt that most of the map layouts were lacking. Some maps had some very abrupt, tight, twisting sections where I found myself bouncing off walls more than I wanted to. Alternatively, there were sections where I was pretty fast by just riding the wall and boosting. It didn't require much input outside of this. The track layouts didn't always seem like they were designed with the speed and handling of the pod racers in mind. In Episode 1 Racer, you were flying around corners at 1,000 miles per hour, and the tracks were built to accommodate that. You'd just barely flick the stick or touch a key and boom, you'd make the corner. In Racer Revenge, I don't think I broke 800 miles per hour once, and the sense of speed just isn't quite there. When you hit your boost, the entire screen becomes blurry as opposed to just the environment. It's a weird effect, and it doesn't look quite right. Shortcuts return, and they're essentially required to win races this time around. For example, at the Bunta Classic, the standard route has you slowing down around this horrid chicane where even if you have a huge lead, you might lose the lead by the time you leave it. By taking the shortcut here on the right, you skip this entirely and jump across these rocks to the next area. In Episode 1 Racer, some routes may have been longer, but they didn't slow you down in terms of the speed of your machine, it's just that the path was that much longer. I also found less variety and exciting moments overall. It felt very by the book, if that makes sense. In Episode 1 Racer, there were huge jumps that required boosts and early inputs to land properly. Once you mastered these, you felt absolutely unstoppable. In Racer Revenge, this seems to be all but gone, instead conveniently landing you in a proper spot each time. I don't think I missed a single jump my entire playthrough. Actually, I didn't finish lower than first on a single race my entire time with Racer Revenge. I will admit the AI put up more of a fight this time around, but I still won most of my races by 3 seconds or more. Customizable pod racers return with Episode 1 Racer's roster returning and new pilots being added as well. More racers unlock as you continue through the races. In the original game, you had a shared pool of parts for all of your pilots. It was almost like you were their manager and you were able to choose which racer suited your needs best for each track. Unfortunately, this has not returned, and each pilot has their own progression system through the championship, with their own credits and their own parts. Running through the tournament mode as Anakin didn't feel like a slog, but I can guarantee it would if you decided to play as each pilot as the game intends you to. I was not a fan of this system at all. It feels like artificial length. None of the tracks change between playthroughs, and after a race or two, every pod racer feels the same too. What I mean by this is that each pod racer starts out with different stats, but as time goes on and you're winning races, you can customize each pod racer with similar stats. If Sebulba isn't fast enough, just dump the money into that stat and now he's just as fast as Anakin with very little thought put into it. Watto's shop and junkyard don't really even return. You don't get a visual of the part you're buying. It's just a bar on the screen that you push further to the right with the credits you've earned. Some might call it streamlining, but to me it just feels cheap. In addition to earning credits from winning races, you also get paid a multiplier based on how many KOs you have. This is a new feature unique to Racer Revenge, but in my eyes it also has issues. There are no weapons or items or anything like that in the game, so to get a KO you're essentially just hanging back and either crashing into them repeatedly or grinding them them against walls. But be careful because the AI can also crash you out of the race and there are no respawns. No respawns would be a pretty unique feature to the game over its predecessor, but it's sadly ruined by the fact that you're able to repair your pod racer to 100% health each time. Repairing also, in my opinion, didn't slow me down that much. In episode 1 Racer, repairing felt like a risky move. Not only were you not able to repair yourself back to 100% health, it slowed you down big time. You were risking positions by repairing, but you were potentially risking it all if you went too far and wrecked. There were respawns, but you'd lose a ton of spots and it was a real pain in the ass. In Racer Revenge, that risk versus reward doesn't exist, and as a result, it just feels bland and lifeless. My entire time with Racer Revenge, I felt like I was on autopilot, just kinda cruising around and collecting win after win. At the end of my playthrough, I unlocked Sebulba, and that was it. My playthrough ended after 1 hour of gameplay. Yeah, just 1 hour. That's not me maxing out all the pilots or even just one pilot, that's me winning the Buntu Classic and unlocking Sebulba. But I thought to myself, maybe if Sebulba has his pod racer sound from the movie, all would be okay. I love the sound of this punchy behemoth of a machine, and I figured there was no way they could possibly screw it up this time. Well, take a listen. Yep, they screwed that up too. The sound design certainly is better than the original, but that's the bare minimum I expect. This is a disc-based game on a next-gen console at the time. It should have better sound design. Music will abruptly start and end. At first I thought it was random, but I later figured out that whenever I'm away from the AI, the music stops. What a weird choice. I personally would have flipped it around so I could hear the other racers more prominently in the mix and then played music when I was off by my lonesome. I know this is a short video, but sometimes you just don't have much to say, and Racer Revenge is just one of those games. It's a downgrade from episode 1 Racer in almost every possible way imaginable. They had the blueprint for a great game, but somehow managed to screw it up. The sequel did change development studios from the first, with Rainbow Studios taking over this time. They were known at the time for the ATV Off-Road Fury and Motocross Madness games, so they had the credentials in my opinion, but sequels are supposed to feel like improvements, not downgrades. I was really looking forward to this one, and it turned out to be a dud. I guess you can't win them all, right? I would not recommend Star Wars Racer Revenge to anybody. Just play the first one again instead. And with that, I turn it over to you. What is the most disappointing video game sequel in your opinion? This can be from any genre, any era, anything. I'd love to read your comments. I try to read and reply to every comment posted. And with that said, let's roll the outro. Thank you all so much for watching, I really do appreciate it. This week I'm going to recommend my 2 previous Star Wars videos, Star Wars Episode 1 Racer of course, and Star Wars Episode 3 Revenge of the Sith. It's got a badass alternate ending that you have to see to believe. As always, have a good one.